Podcast City Network.
Hey guys, this is Chris, and we are back for another episode of Final Score. We're up to episode 14 now.
14
right. Deep, man. We're getting there, and it's been real exciting. A lot of great stuff has been happening in sports, but first and foremost, make sure that you go and follow us on social media, on Facebook, /PCN Final Score, on Twitter, @PCN Final Score. Check out all of the great stuff that we have going on over there, and oh, yeah, we did do that thing. What was that thing it done called? It was, we're on a bunch of platforms now, like Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, and Google Play Music. Tell you what, it's been a lot of exciting times.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. I like how you said we done did it.
We done did it.
I like how you said we done did it.
We done did it. And see, like, we're even getting fancy. Like, we're pulling stuff out, and, we're decorating now.
Yeah, starting a little bit, slowly but surely.
Yeah. Eventually, one day other things may happen. You never know. You never know.
Are you talking about a TV?
Maybe.
Are you talking about like an actual set?
I mean, you never know what happens.
That's true. You never know.
You never know. But one thing you also never know about is a lot of the crazy things that we like to do, including this big announcement, if you didn't see on any of our social medias, is the fact that we are going to be having a live event coming up here in 2 weeks on June 1st, 2019, at City Limits Tap Room, where Final Score will join Draft Day live at 8 p.m., and they'll also be going live on Twitch.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty exciting time.
We're
going to be down there.
Look forward to it.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be free entry, prize giveaways, tons of beer. Hope your belly's ready because it's going to be great.
Oh, you know how I like to drink, so.
Oh man, yeah, I do. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a crazy good time, but definitely make sure that you come down and join us June 1st, 2019 at 2620 North Woodland Boulevard in beautiful D-Land, Florida, at City Limits Tap Room. It's going to be an amazing time. I really can't wait. I'm really excited.
So I have a question for you. This is kind of topic depending, but you said D-Land. Is it D-Land or D-Land?
Oh, it's D-Land if you're from D-Land.
It is D-Land.
Yes. If you're not from D-Land, it's D-Land. But
that's the way I've always heard it.
If you're from D-Land, well, it's because you're probably around a bunch of people from D-Land. That's why.
D-Land.
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 You got to see the football team. They got a good one of those, too. Just saying.
The Hatters?
No. That's Stetson. I'm talking about the high school team. They've turned out some NFL talent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking about the Stetson Hatters.
Well, I mean, they're good too, and thanks to them, Spec Martin Stadium was completely renovated and looks even more amazing than it did. But hey, the little known fact: the Waterboy was filmed at Spec Martin. That was the home of the SCLSU Mud Dogs.
Is that where they filmed it?
That's exactly where they filmed it. That was their home field.
I never knew that.
Oh yeah, and that was before all the renovations. When it was fun fact of the day.
Fun fact of the day.
Might have to be a new segment. Never know. Anyways, though. Just to make sure we get back on course with everything going on, because we have a lot to talk about today. It's going to be super, super crazy. And first things first that we need to start off with is with the NBA. Because with the NBA, we ended up having, what do they call that thing? Oh, yeah, it's the NBA draft lottery, I believe it is. Tell you what, it's really surprising how things worked out.
Yeah, they changed up the way that they do the lottery this year as far as what are the chances that the team with the worst record can land the number one pick? Mm-hmm. And, of course, they started doing this in the early 90s, and the number one pick always had roughly a 25% chance of landing. So
right.
Over the last decade or so, your Philadelphia 76ers actually made it commonplace to start tanking openly.
Tanking.
So they, in recent years, have been trying to find ways to help get rid of this issue and try to fix it. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the New York Knicks were openly but not openly tanking for Zion. And they had a chance. They got in the top three and didn't get number one.
It's just so ridiculous. That's one thing I don't like about the lottery as a whole, but I think it's kind of ridiculous. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But we're going to bring up our little graphic. We actually did some work this time. Kaboom! Look at that. The NBA 2019 Draft Lottery. Now, looking through this, we see that the New Orleans Pelicans ended up with the first pick. They only had a 6% chance of landing this top pick entering the night. So definitely very surprising. It leaves them with a lot of different options, which we'll get to in a little bit. But looking down this list, who else do you see here that's very notable?
So we're looking at Grizzlies ended up getting the number 2 pick. They've had a chance. They had a 6% chance landing number 1, and they've never actually selected first. They actually did win the lottery in the late 90s, but they had a deal in the expansion draft with them in Toronto. I believe it was 95, 96, or 95, excuse me, because for the next 3 years, 96, 7, and 8, they were not allowed to have the first pick of the draft if they were to get it.
That's right.
Of course, one of those years, Toronto got it. They had to give it up. They went to number 2. Grizzlies, the same thing a year later. So they've never had a chance to be number 1, even though they did win the lottery in the late 90s. But they actually got a very, very nice bounce here, landing at number 2 in a kind of star-studded NBA draft that critics and scouts have been raving about for the last year. And then the Knicks ended up getting number 3. So we talked about they had the best chance, tied with the best chance at 14% of landing number 1. Of course, with the new rules, the top 3 teams all have the same chance percentage to get number 1, which is much, much lower than what it has been in years past. It used to be 25 for 1, roughly 19 to 20% for number 2, and then gradually dropping down as you go. Now it's a little bit different. So they actually fell to 3. They were lucky to get in the top 3, honestly. Lakers at 4. They only had a 9% chance of getting into the top 4 coming into that night, which was really interesting to see how this is going to play out with LA. Of course, the whole LeBron situation. What are they going to do? Are they going to package a bunch of young talent and picks and try to get Anthony Davis again? So that'll be interesting with them at number 4, where they go in this draft. Number 6, the Suns. They also had a 14% chance of getting number 1, but they fell all the way to number 6, which has got to be disappointing if you're in the Phoenix Suns front office, which, I mean, it depends. You can just kind of pick a name out of a hat. That's going to be your GM and head coach for this year. That's just the way they've been operating. But so that's really disappointing for them to drop down to 6. And then the Hawks actually land 2 picks in the top 10. They get number 8 and number 10. Remember, one of those picks is part of the Luka Doncic trade from last year with the Dallas Mavericks. So they have a really good chance of infusing a lot more talent into an already young team and really could turn some heads this next year, especially if they play free agency well in the offseason.
Yeah, definitely could work out very nicely for them. But, you know, it's very interesting with this odds change that we talked about, how they've changed it towards a little bit more even on the top end, which I do have my own feelings about the draft, which we'll get to here in a little. But with the change in odds this year and the Pelicans landing number 1, does this help put to rest the tanking as a viable option in the NBA?
You would think so, just because you're trying to deter these teams from openly tanking. So, like I said, last year, the Knicks would have had a 25% chance. You would think, yes, it does. But if you really wanted to hammer this idea home that tanking is bad and, you know, you shouldn't be doing it, I mean, the rumor has it that the NBA handpicks it anyway. It's not a really random anymore.
No.
There's been more and more evidence over the last few years that the NBA hand selects who's going to be what pick. I just find it kind of odd that the one team that has had their star drag them through the mud all year and now is openly wanting to leave somehow miraculously gets the number 1 pick. Kind of like when LeBron left Cleveland and 2 years in a row, number 1 pick. Okay, like that's not clearly you're cheating in NBA, but you know, it's clearly collusion, but
you know,
they could have
under
picked,
the rug.
I think they could have picked another team like a Chicago or something. That's still,
absolutely.
There's still a viable market. I mean, you could still use a Chicago as a way of saying, "Hey, don't tank," and then the Knicks and the Suns, and I forget who the the third team was in that scenario. But you could take both of those teams, drop them out of the top 4. That'll really encourage them to stop tanking. But of course, you put the Knicks at 3, put the Suns at 6, and you give the Pelicans the number 1 pick. You could see it as good karma, but I think it's collusion. I think they're handpicking teams to be number 1.
That's why I really feel like at the end of the day, the draft lottery system is completely counterproductive. Because at the end of the day, you're not really helping teams. You're kind of just handpicking and leaving it open to so much influence from many outside sources, obviously the biggest being the NBA itself, to kind of curtail where a lot of these star players are going to go and what will help for certain markets, what's going to help for these players, what's going to help the NBA look good. And I don't like that. I feel like the NFL approach is a little bit more honestly simple. It's just plain simple. Worst team gets top pick. Now I know it's a little harder in the NBA. 84 games makes tanking possibly an even more viable option for teams at that point. But at the end of the day, at least it'd be a little bit more fair in a certain sense of speaking. Just because with draft lottery, you're literally leaving it open to any way, shape, or form to where it can be manipulated to you can keep teams in the cellar for years where you can eventually, there's so many ways it could branch out, where you can end up forcing out owners because now they're not making enough money because you put them there as the NBA. I mean, I know that's a little extreme.
But here's the issue that you run into. If you go to the way it used to be in, say, the 80s and later, you're going to have teams like the New York Knicks who are openly tanking. And I mean, in the NFL, there's been rumors that some teams are tanking or would be willing to tank, which is really difficult because
with a 16-game season, the 16-game season, it's a lot harder, and that just with how games can go, anything can happen.
Yeah, owners could want teams to tank, but players on that team are not going to do that on purpose.
No, they're not. But thing is, too, do you think NBA players are openly going to tank as well?
Hell no.
And that's what I'm looking at. Is that I don't think it would be as big of an issue.
As a professional athlete, your ego is too big to allow you to purposely lose and throw games like that.
Exactly. That's why I feel like openly tanking is not something that you would see probably as prevalent today as you say, mentioned back in the day in the 80s and 90s and whatnot.
What I wish they would do, and I know it's because of all the technology and they say they do everything beforehand and that's why they have those cue cards. Go back to the old school way when you just put a bunch of balls into a bingo wheel and just
at least that's more fair.
Out. It's way more fair because it actually is legitimate chance. Well, basically, if you use 100 ping pong balls and you throw them in there, obviously your percentage, you're going to have roughly 25 of them be number 1, and then you're going to go, that kind of thing.
You know what? Why not make it a whole thing with battle for the balls? At the end of the day, where you end up finishing a certain way or in the season, and then you have so many balls put into this big spinner. I know you're getting funnies out of this. It's okay, but
that's what she said.
It's a good marketing ploy. Because look, you're thinking about it now, aren't you?
It's hilarious.
So why
battle
not?
for the balls?
Battle for the balls.
Battle for the balls. But the bigger
call me NBA. I'm here.
The bigger issue is I agree with you that this does not put to rest tanking at all. In my opinion, I think just the way that the NBA is right now, it actually still encourages tanking just because the fact that NBA is all about the haves and the have-nots.
Right.
You can do what the 76ers did and tank for X amount of years, get some good draft picks, and now all of a sudden you're building an actual cornerstone to your franchise until they leave for free agency. But other teams, you'll notice like a lot of the really good teams right now have built through the draft. Golden State is a great example.
Very great example.
Outside of Kevin Durant, even outside of that, he joined the team and they plugged and played. But look at the core people they drafted: Steph, Clay, Draymond. Those are the big 3 that they drafted.
And they've made huge impacts on this team to be able to drive them to the championships they've won.
Look at Portland, who they're playing in the Western Conference Finals.
Absolutely.
They drafted Dame and McCollum. And you look at the other side, you still got Giannis was drafted by Milwaukee. You had Philadelphia with all drafting the way they did. Boston with all their draft. So this is what it's all about. It's not necessarily tanking. It's not necessarily tanking's like really good, but the only way to get good in the NBA is to have stars, which is why you see teams like my team, the Pistons, suffering in mediocrity because they're hovering between playoffs and not, but they don't get a bad enough pick to get a star, but they're right there in the middle, and if you have to hit on those picks if you're not in the top half of the lottery. So I think if you're not, it's kind of like how baseball does it. If you're not competing for the championship, you're probably tanking. In baseball, that's early part of the season. Yeah, everybody's got a chance. But once you hit that halfway mark of the season, teams are openly tanking.
Well, it's a little different, too, because they have even double what the NBA plays. 162 games in a season is no small task.
Right.
So once you reach a certain point, you're going to know what kind of team you have one way or the other, and usually you're not going to be able to recover.
NBA is the same way because basically when you start in October, by the time you hit mid-January, some teams do turn it around at the first of the year, and you've seen that this year even as well. But if you
go Red Sox.
Yeah, if you look at in the NBA, usually by about mid-January, you know what kind of a team you have, and you know if you're going to try to trade some of your assets to get some expiring contracts back so you can get ready for the next offseason, or are you going to try to sell some of your draft picks to get another player to help put you over the hump? You usually know. So, I mean, tanking is, once you get into February, the teams that know they're not making the playoffs, you damn sure they're tanking.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's the point of trying to push for the playoffs if you know you're not going to make it? Your team's not going to get you to a championship. And I mean, that's where you see a lot of this. So I think it's a problem that they cannot fix. I don't think there's ever a way they're going to be able to fix it.
I think it really comes down to just because of the amount of games they have that they're able to dictate that. And that's what's going to end up being the downfall of this, and why I think you're right. They're not going to be able to fix this. You have, 82 games in a season. There's no way you're going to be able to fix that. Because at any point, you're going to know this team's not good and have plenty of time left to be able to sink down to the bottom as quickly as you can to make sure you can secure a top prospect.
Yeah, and the way you do that is, I mean, you look at some teams that have done that. They hold their stars out for being hurt, and they say that they have injuries that are nagging.
Or what they call it, a maintenance.
Well, they call it load maintenance now.
Load maintenance now.
But the NBA is cracking down on that too, because that's what they're trying to get rid of these back-to-back. So teams don't purposely
have to do that,
tank games so they do these kinds of things. But even if you shorten up the season, you're still going to have this issue. It doesn't matter.
This is true.
Because look at the Phoenix Suns of the world, that they, as many times as they've been drafting, part of that is really just ownership, because they can't keep a GM in place. They can't keep a head coach in place. They've gone through a rotisserie just of new GMs, new head coaches every single year for the past, 5 years maybe.
That's bad.
They did it again this year.
It just gets crazy when you're looking at it all. Just the revolving door of how it all goes.
Yeah, that's where you got to look at and point the finger at management if you're Phoenix Suns fans. But what are you going to do? Because the owner's going to do what they want.
Exactly, because it's their team at the end of the day. So really, what are you going to do?
Right.
But talking about teams and what they're going to do, the Pelicans do have the first pick in this draft now. So with them having the first pick, what should they do?
There's so many things they can do.
There's so many things.
If you are a fan of the Pelicans, of course you're going to say, "Oh, draft Zion."
Oh, easily. Everybody would like to have Zion on their team. Why wouldn't anybody?
Right. Here's what I would do. I would be getting on the phone with a New York, with an LA, people at 2 and 3. And I'm trying to trade AD to get another top 5 pick. Could you imagine? Because Zion and Ja Morant are going number 1 and 2.
Well, definitely.
They're going 1 and 2. Because Zion is projected to be like the next kind of LeBron type player, and then Ja Morant is the next best player in the draft, and Memphis needs to get a new point guard for when Mike Conley does inevitably leave the team.
Right.
And I mean, with his massive contract, it's kind of tough, but they're going to get rid of him at some point. But after that, I mean, you've got RJ Barrett, Jarrett Culver, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish. I mean, you've got guys that are there that you could literally, hell, if you wanted to, you could put RJ Barrett and Zion back on the same team and put him in New Orleans. And now you've got Alvin Gentry, and basically tell him, these are your 2 new cornerstones. Have fun. Go after it. Their expectations are going to be pretty low this year.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Just because, in a way, you're kind of doing a big transitional change with your roster. But the big thing I think they need to do, too, is that while it's great to try and go down and get picks and all that stuff, I feel like you shouldn't really rely too much on young. You guys, if you get Zion, that's all you're going to need. Go take Anthony Davis. Go get established players in the league. Go ahead and call these other teams that have a little bit young talent that have proven themselves a little bit. Go get multiple players to put around Zion. That's what you need to really, I think, focus on at this point. Draft Zion and build around him, and ship Anthony Davis out. You don't need Anthony Davis at this point. Just because we've already seen what's happened during this whole past season, what Anthony Davis did with the Pelicans, how the Pelicans responded, and now you're sitting here with what, like you said, this is a LeBron-esque viewed player that really could end up being one of the next greats in the NBA. So build around him fast.
I want to agree with you to trade them for players that are developed and they know solid veterans. Here's the catch to that. With Zion, realistically, are you going to win a championship in the next 3 years with Zion?
If you have Zion, I think you absolutely could.
BS. Complete BS. There's no way.
Yeah.
So what I would do is you've already got veterans on the team. Drew Holiday, Julius Randle, Jahlil Okafor, Elfrid Payton, Etuan Moore, just to name a few players. But Drew Holiday and Julius Randle are your two big veterans that are on that team. So you've already got guys that can work around with Zion. Drew Holiday is a great pointer, very underrated point guard in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And you've got other guys around that can do certain things that you need them to do. Keep infusing. NBA is all about youthful talent and just getting more and more, accumulating more and more talent. Why not trade Anthony Davis? And part of the stories that I've been reading into is the trade packages for Anthony Davis. We're talking multiple year first round picks need to be offered to get Anthony Davis. And I completely agree.
But is any team actually going to give up that? And that's the thing you're going to look at, because
of course,
I don't see a team wanting to fully mortgage their future if they're going to give up everything.
Tried. Just Rob Pelinka is
but you have LeBron
incompetent
there too, so it's a little bit different. You have LeBron there.
Boston's been in the running. They're talking about trading the whole young nucleus of their team to sabotage all that, to run with Anthony Davis, Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving if he stays.
Which I feel like he's not going to at this point.
It's possible, but I agree. I don't think he will, but it's possible. But if you bring in Anthony Davis, he's going to stay.
Well,
but here's the problem. Now you gave away all your young players, and now you're basically hemorrhaging all of that to try to win in the next year or two, because Anthony Davis is only going to be a 1-year loaner.
Right.
And then you got to try to recruit him to stay. But those teams are definitely in the running. The Knicks, of course, are going to be in the running.
Oh, absolutely. Just because of the market alone and what kind of money they could throw at him, that he'll be in the running.
So all of those teams, I mean, if I'm New Orleans, yeah, of course, I'm going to let these teams fight it out and bid against each other. But at the end of the day, I'm going to use this as leverage, because you know how badly the LA Lakers want Anthony Davis. I would make them, and I'm not exaggerating or kidding, I would make them not only give me Kuzma, Ball, and Ingram. I want number 4 for this year. I want your first round pick unprotected for the next 3 years. 4 first round picks and those players. I am not kidding, because you know the Lakers want him badly.
And considering that there's...
Rob Pelinka might be dumb enough to do it.
He just might, and that's what hurts me. And Anthony Davis still has 2 years left on his deal, currently worth $55.5 million.
That's right, 2 years. I'm sorry, I said
still
1.
2 years. 2 years, yes.
You're right.
But either way, though, the Lakers might be the ones dumb enough to do it. They really might. But at the end of the day, though, I still feel that would be the best situation for any team going in that, because you don't have to trade away everything and you still have LeBron.
Yeah, but
him.
Here's the thing, though. New Orleans literally holds all the cards right now.
Oh, they hold every card.
Leverage. They have all the leverage right now. They can literally make these teams have a bidding, literally an arms race, a bidding war amongst New York, Boston, and LA, the 3 biggest markets that want him. You can make them have a bidding war, and I guarantee you can get 3 years of first round picks, including this year, and 2 to 3 young core players to build your team around, with Zion, with Drew Holiday, with Julius Randle, who's a great player. I'm really interested to see, if they do draft Zion, how are those two going to coexist? They're not the same player, obviously. Julius Randle has really expanded his game since he went to New Orleans, They're pretty similar, though. They're pretty similar in playing styles, except Zion's a lot more explosive. He's a lot
Really
more
explosive.
with dunking. But Julius Randle's a very crafty, very good post player. I think it'll be really interesting to see those two try to play together.
It definitely will be interesting all the way through, and we'll definitely get some clarity as time goes on, which we'll obviously cover in future episodes of Final Score. But something that we need to cover right now, and that is something that has been very, very exciting and surprising even in some fashions, and that's the NBA playoffs, which have been just truly magical this offseason, or this postseason, I should say. Really magical. But one series we're going to look at first, though, with the Bucks and the Raptors, hasn't been quite as magical for the Raptors.
Man, Milwaukee, I've personally have doubted them. I will admit it. I will full-fledged admit I have underestimated the Bucks. They're just dominating this series. And I know I know game 1, it was an 8-point game. It was a pretty well contested game. Kyle Lowry actually showed up, which was great.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome to the playoffs, Kyle Lowry. But game 2, all Milwaukee.
All Milwaukee in so many ways. The Bucks were up 25 points at halftime.
Yeah.
Halftime. That is just truly insane. But another stat that I loved, only 3 Raptors, only 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, 3 hit double digits. Only 3. Now, obviously, Kawhi Leonard went out there and, balled his face off, shot for 31 points. But the other 2, Kyle Lowry for 15, Norman Powell, 14 off the bench. Everybody else is single digits.
Well, I mean, the other players that usually you expect to see step up and perform, Siakam, Green usually gets you some good minutes off the bench. Ibaka, Gasol, all those guys. But I think this is more of a testament to Milwaukee's defense. They're long, They're athletic. They disrupt so many offenses just because of their sheer length and athleticism.
They're very suffocating.
They are. They can be at times, and they have done it all year. And they obviously having the best record in the NBA. They've done. You say what you will about the East. I think it's a little bit better off now than with LeBron gone. But
I agree.
But yeah, you get to see now other teams like this rise up to the challenge. And props to the Bucks. They're playing a hell of a series. It'll be interesting. I think they'll probably get a 3-1 lead after the 2 games in Toronto. Toronto's got to steal one at home.
They have to, and they're playing very well. We're playing hungry, but the Toronto brass already come out and said, you know what? It doesn't matter. We're down 2-0. Doesn't matter. We still can win this, and we're going to.
Well, of course, you have to believe that you're going to win it. If you come into a series like this, you're like, yeah, we're down 2-0. We're just going to give up.
Yeah, who does that?
You don't deserve to be there in the first place.
Exactly.
So I agree.
But you know what, though? A testament, like you said, though, to Milwaukee's defense, 13 turnovers they forced in game 2, while Toronto's only able to get 7. So defense definitely played big in this.
Those are still pretty low turnover numbers, even for an NBA game. I mean,
no, definitely is.
Usually you see with good defense teams, they're forcing 15, 16 turnovers a game, and so I mean that's these. But
still,
teams,
almost double. You're talking about almost a 2-to-1 difference. And I feel like something like that always is going to play into this.
But I mean, like if you're looking at as far as how well these two teams played, Toronto, as far as offensive rating and offensive efficiency, they're ranked 5th in the league.
Right.
Their defensive rating is also 5th. So they're obviously no slouch.
Definitely not.
They fought really hard to get to this point. But I mean, when you've got a team that's the best defensive team in the league, and offensively they're in the top 5 in offensive rating as well, it's kind of tough.
It really is
to be able to beat a team like that, especially on the road.
Oh, definitely. But we're definitely going to find out more once we get to Game 3 in Toronto, which will be Sunday, May 19th at 7 p.m. on TNT. So we'll definitely see if Toronto can try and right this ship before it gets any more ugly. But shifting gears over to the Western Conference Finals, we still have Golden State and the Portland Trail Blazers who been having some pretty good games here, especially this Game 2. It was only a 3-point game with Golden State taking it 114-111.
This has been a great series. I mean,
already.
The Western Conference has given us some really good series. This whole playoffs has given us some really good series. But this one is no different. We kind of talked about this before Game 7 of Portland and Denver, and who we thought should win that series and play ultimately Golden State. I thought Portland was a lot better suited to play Golden State. Obviously, they split 2-2 in the season, but I mean, it's still a series, even though they're down 2-0. You still have to go back to Portland to play 2 games, which actually Game 3 is tonight. It's actually on right now.
It is on
during
right
our
now.
broadcast here. But I would really expect Damian Lillard to step up in a big way, especially after the first couple of games. He's only averaged roughly 15 shots a game, which is pretty low for his standards. And he's only shooting 35% from the field in the first 2 games. So he really needs to play a lot better. Going 10 of 28 from the field is not going to help your chances any.
Well, as of right now, Portland does lead 19-12. Definitely has been a little interesting game. Leonard right now is 2 for 2 from the field with 5 points. So definitely making some stuff happen. Has 1 3-pointer as well. So it's we'll definitely see what happens. It's definitely going to be fluid. No, now 20-12. So
you just gonna give us live updates the whole show?
I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
You just want to do it? Let's just do it.
Let's just do it. All right, I'll just keep it up now. So we'll definitely see what happens. But the big thing I saw though at the end of game 2 is that the Blazers were in the driver's seat in this game, even up to 4.5 minutes left when they were up by 8, and it all literally just unraveled, and Golden State just came alive to the point where Damian Lillard did not even score in the last 7.5 minutes of this game. And they had opportunities to be able to try and get back in this, especially after Golden State started getting on a run, and they just couldn't do it. And then near the end of the game, right at the end of the game, Blazers had another shot, missed the opportunity as well. So I feel like the Blazers are going to be a lot more passionate coming out, especially at home, and are going to play a lot harder because they know that they can beat Golden State. They know they're right there. They controlled this game. They're up 15.5, like we said earlier, 8.5 of 4.5 left. So, or 8 points of 4.5 left. Let me get my words right. I'm getting excited because this is a good series.
I see that.
So, I really feel that Portland does have a shot. And honestly, going into this series, I wasn't really giving Portland a shot in this at all.
I thought they had a much better shot than Denver.
Oh, absolutely.
Denver would have probably either got swept or 4-1 series.
It'd be looking like the Toronto-Milwaukee series right now.
It probably would. But I think that game wasn't necessarily Portland just losing grip of that game. It was Golden State actually came back and fought to get in, because even Steve Kerr said it himself. Mm-hmm. They looked horrible in the first half.
Absolutely.
But they actually played with intensity in the second half. They played better on the defensive end. One player that's really played well in this series in the first couple games won't really show up on the stat sheet, Draymond Green. Mm-hmm. His stats don't jump out at you. Yeah, 14, 10, and 6, averaging, honestly, 4 blocks a game. He's having, but this is only through 2 games. But it's on the court that's not on the stat sheets and stuff that you're looking at. He played that last 4 to 5 minute stretch with 5 fouls. He had to really be smart about what he was doing on the court. He could have gotten his 6th foul called a couple times in that last couple minutes,
for sure.
But they didn't call it. So he's still on the floor. He is the heart and soul of this team. So when they're talking about what is the glue that keeps this team together, yeah, Steph Curry's great, Klay's great, having Kevin Durant's awesome too, those 3 shooters, but you can tell that this team, the heart and soul of this team, is Draymond Green, and this series is showing you why.
Definitely, for sure, and we'll definitely see how the series keeps on going. I think this is going to be a lot more exciting. I think Portland might take these next 2 at home, honestly, to where we might get to going back to Golden State. So we'll definitely see. The next game will be Saturday, Tonight, right now. What am I talking about?
What are you doing?
I don't know.
Okay?
That's right. You know what we need? A live update, because Portland now is up 25-17. So we'll definitely see what happens. 3:19 left in the first as of right now.
So
still
what did you
plenty
say
of
game
basketball.
4 was?
Game 4.
When is game 4?
Game 4 will be Monday.
Monday, okay.
May 20th, 9 p.m.
Sunday,
on
Monday.
ESPN. Not Sunday. Monday. Don't mind me. Excited. Very excited. But it'll definitely be an exciting series, and we'll definitely see how it plays out. But looking ahead, though, do you still think Golden State's going to take this in the end?
I think they'll win in They will have to win one on the road, obviously. But,
for sure.
I think Portland wins. I think they can win the next 2 games at home, even it up at 2-2. Golden State is really, really hard to beat at home.
Oh, they are.
Very hard to beat at home. So, and Portland almost did it in game 2. So I think it goes tied 2-2 into game 5, and then Golden State wins the next 2 to take the series and probably end up meeting the Bucks the way it looks in the first couple games.
Honestly, I think Golden State will take it in 6. I think Portland will definitely take these next 2 at home, but then I think Golden State will not only win at home, but then go and win on the road. So I think it'll be Golden State in 6, and then I think we'll eventually, inevitably, end up meeting the Milwaukee Bucks. And
you think your Raptors got a shot?
I don't think they have a shot at this point.
I don't think so either.
I'm trying to believe. I really am. The North and all that, but
it would be a great story. It's actually a great story for either of these teams to make the NBA Finals.
Absolutely.
You've got a young budding superstar in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he's going to be like the next guy to take over the mantle, really, of star player in the league. And Milwaukee being a small market team, it's always a good story to see them in the spotlight. Toronto, for all their playoff failures and close calls, it'd be nice to see them in the finals as well, but I don't think you can go wrong either way. I think Golden State takes it no matter what, but that's for another show.
The big thing, though, I see with this Milwaukee Bucks, they haven't been in the NBA Finals since 1974. When
you know who led that team?
Who led that team? Go ahead, tell me. Lou Alcindor. Lou Alcindor. But they ended up losing. Yeah, who is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? But they lost in the NBA Finals in 7 games to the Celtics that year. So before that,
well, I mean that was the dynasty.
Oh, that was the
The
dynasty.
Boston Celtics.
But just 3
that was
years.
The end of it, actually. That
was the end. But just 3 years earlier, they won it 4-0 in a sweep against the Washington Bullets.
Yeah.
Take it back that far. So Milwaukee, it's been a really long time for them. And I definitely could see them going. Toronto, while it's been great, and I really trusted up in you until this very point, it's been nice knowing you. You'll hopefully get a participation trophy. So
they better hope that they can hold on to Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, you might want to.
When this series is over, that'll be one of the subjects we're going to have to discuss.
Definitely.
On what the Raptors do from here and what does Kawhi do from here if they do in fact lose.
Because he didn't expect really to get traded to begin with when he ended up leaving the Spurs. So
he wanted out though.
He did, but I don't think he necessarily expected Toronto.
Oh, definitely not. He was thinking he was going to go to the Clippers or something.
Yeah,
or
somewhere nice.
L.A. Yeah, where he wants to go to L.A. I don't know. Maybe he still does. We'll have to discuss that in a future show here.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe even at draft day in 2 weeks. Who knows?
Maybe. I mean, Toronto's season might be over by then. Well,
exactly. So we can speculate. Well, it might be, but they have to do the unthinkable and beat a Giannis-led Milwaukee Bucks.
We'll see.
So we'll definitely see. But one thing that we are going to take a look at as well, NHL playoffs, and they also have been insanely entertaining. Boston Bruins, though, 4-0 sweep.
It's a bit surprising just because of how well Carolina has played in this postseason in doing the unthinkable. I mean, they still had 46 wins on the year, so it's not like they were barely squeaking in the playoffs.
True.
They were the top wildcard team in the East, but they played really well in their series. They obviously beating Washington in the first round in 7 games, and then
swept the Islanders.
Sweeping the Islanders was crazy.
But then they get swept by the Bruins, and honestly, only one game was really close.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was pure dominance by Boston in this series. So, a little surprising to me. I thought the Hurricanes would at least taken 1 or 2 in this series. But, hey, way to go, Boston Bruins. You're in the Stanley Cup Finals. But on the other side, that's where things get a lot more interesting. And that's where the excitement comes in. Because the San Jose Sharks and the St. Louis Blues are currently tied 2-2. Have been having some classic games, including a 5-4 overtime game 3. Went down to the wire. And even in game 4, the Blues beat the Sharks 2-1. Only 1 score differential. So, definitely been an exciting series. What's your opinion on this?
The big thing in this game is the game 3 a couple of nights ago, the one in overtime. Very controversial call at the end of the game where there was a potential non-called hand pass puck was bouncing around. I believe it was Couture batted it. Didn't look like he batted it towards the net, but it looked like he batted it to a teammate.
Right.
Throws it kind of in front of the net. Carlson comes up, ends up getting the pass on the backside of the goalie, and then puts it home for the win. And of course, the home crowd was furious. I mean, you could see a lot of the players were huddling around the refs, trying to figure out what was the call, see if they could wave it off. And when they didn't wave it off, they threw a fit, as you would imagine.
Absolutely.
But that is how close these games are. These games are getting right down to one goal games, overtime games. These two teams really, I mean, this is one of the most heated series that I've seen this year's playoffs outside of the San Jose Vegas series.
Mm-hmm. Well, this series has so much on the line for two teams that have come so close in years past and just haven't been there, especially the San Jose Sharks. So it's a lot of intensity, a lot of emotion. So I can understand, but with something like that, that was just crazy, and I'm surprised that it actually ended in that fashion. But it is what it is, and Carlson's Couture, I should say, is gonna find a way to win. I mean, it's why he has 5 goals and 6 points in the series.
Yeah, and the 3 players, that's one of the 3 players that San Jose really needs to be playing well. And so far, the one thing that you really look at in the NHL, at least from my opinion, my perspective, is I look at plus minus. When you look at plus minus, and as far as and average time on ice,
right.
how often is a guy on the ice, and how effective are they when they're there? So the 3 players, their top 3 players, all have a plus minus 3. The pre-mentioned Couture, Carlson, and Brett Burns.
Yep.
Couple of veterans, and they've really relied on the last 2, Carlson and Burns, because those guys play defense, and Brett Burns actually plays a little bit of wing too. So you've really got to rely on those guys to step up for you. As far as the St. Louis Blues, they're not playing bad either. I mean, they have a handful of guys that are all on the good side of the plus minus, but they're really relying on a couple of guys. I'm going to butcher this name, Parayko. Colton, Parayko, Joel Edmondson, and Ryan O'Reilly. Those 3 guys. Bo Meester is another guy. Those guys have really been playing a lot of time on the ice, but they really need guys to just step up and win the games that they can win at home. Because like we said in previous shows, San Jose can score, and they can score a lot.
Absolutely, they can score and score a lot. But the thing is that the Blues still hang in there. And that's the thing I've seen is that the first game was probably the largest differential in all these games, where it was 3 goals. However, game 2, 2 goals. Game 3, 1 goal. Game 4, 1 goal. So it just shows how close it is that this really could go either way. So I feel both teams, especially with a 2-2 tie, this is a 3-game race now.
Yep.
You have to come out and win 2 of these 3 and try and take this thing home.
Well, the one thing that's playing into San Jose's favor is the fact they have home ice advantage. And if they do make it to a game 7, I don't know if St. Louis, they've done it before where they've had to win a game 6 and a game 7 in the previous series.
Right.
It's really tough. I don't know if they can do it in back-to-back series, especially with San Jose and how they've been playing so inspired, especially with Joe Pavelski going down with injury in the Vegas series. Since he's come back, he's been doing decently well, but they've been really inspired when he got injured, especially when he came back. They're really trying to play for him and Joe Thornton in his final year. So.
Oh, definitely. So at the end of the day, though, who do you got taking this? San Jose and what?
I obviously I still have to ride.
I know you still got to take that San Jose train
because I still got to ride it. I've got them in the Stanley Cup final. I think this goes all the way to 7. This goes all the way to 7. So I think each team wins on their home ice. And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if Game 7 goes to overtime.
That'd be crazy.
That's the way this series has been going.
Honestly, that's the way these playoffs have been going.
That is very true.
Just pure insanity and craziness, and it's definitely going to be exciting. So definitely make sure you check out Game 5. It'll be Sunday, May 19th, 3 p.m. on NBC, so definitely check it out. I can't wait. It's going to be really exciting. And, just throw my prediction out there. Yeah, San Jose Sharks in 6.
Oh, you got them in 6.
I got them in 6. I got them winning the next 2.
I'm glad you're seeing the light.
I'm going to have to, seeing as how Tampa Bay Lightning already laid their stinker way back in round 1. So,
one of these predictions we're ultimately going to get right.
Well, that's just probability. It's eventually going to happen.
Eventually, it's going to have to happen, right?
Yeah, it's eventually. I'll be like Lou Holtz. Just ringing the same bell every single year, and eventually I'll be right.
Eventually, you can be right. You can't pick a bunch of players and you can't pick a bunch of people and be wrong all the time, like some teams of late. Not naming any teams.
No, we're not going to name any teams. So we are going to name. We are going to name though is some great sponsors of the Podcast City Network and FinalScore. So definitely make sure that you stay tuned when we come back. We're going to talk about some great NFL news, a little bit of the best of the week, and give you that schedule or the standings update for Major League Baseball, and a new segment.
Oh, a new segment.
Exciting. Oh, it is so exciting. So definitely make sure that you stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Podcast City Network.